and welcome to another episode of the Chaos Chronicles.
Navigating the randomness.
I'm Jess.
I'm Connie.
And today we're going to be going over a cold case. So that should be pretty exciting. Do want to warn you guys, we're going to be talking about a murder, which is pretty gory, pretty graphic. So just warning, viewer discretion. So
yeah. And before we get too deep into our story, just a reminder, you can find us on YouTube, TikTok, Spotify, and Instagram. The handle for all four is at Chaos Chronicles Podcast, and that's Chronicles with an S. We would very much appreciate a like and subscribe.
Yes. All right. You ready to find out what our topic is?
Find out. Yeah, I don't know anything about today's. I don't know the case or anything, so we'll find out if I've actually heard about it before.
I know.
But
I'd be kind of surprised if you haven't, but I hadn't. But my husband had, so. All right. Do you know the story of Elizabeth Short? The case is also known as the Black Dahlia.
Oh, there is a band named after that.
Yeah, that is how my husband knew what it was. He's like, oh yeah, there's a band named after the murder. I'm like, oh.
Yes, it's a metal band if you weren't aware.
I figured. Yeah.
Oh yeah, letting the internet folks know. Yeah. Oh my god,
especially with how gruesome this becomes. Like, it's got to be a metal band. Of all people that would take the name, it would 100%.
Probably not a Christian youth group. I'm assuming. Yeah.
No. Gosh,
I'm assuming. But I don't remember as much about it. I know I've heard about it, so I'm sure some things will, trigger as we get there. But okay.
All right.
Here we go.
So I'm going to start in the very, very beginning. Elizabeth was born in 1924 in the Hyde Park area of Boston, Massachusetts. She was the third of 5 daughters born to Cleo and Phoebe Short. Her father made a living by designing and building miniature golf courses.
I mean, yeah, someone's got to do that. Mm-hmm. That would actually be fun.
It would be a lot of fun. But
oh no.
We're in the 1920s.
Oh, yeah.
What happens in the end of the 1920s?
Not a lot of money for mini golf.
No. So the Great Depression hits in 29. And like a lot of people, a lot of Americans, Cleo's business was hit. So his business failed. And shortly after his business failed, Cleo's car was found abandoned on a bridge. And it was presumed that he jumped into the Charles River and took his own life. Mm-hmm. So this left Phoebe to raise her 5 daughters by herself. She did find a job, but...
Did Cleo have life insurance? Do we know?
I don't know, actually.
Because that's like the one thing my brain goes to. Of like, how would you cannot leave your wife and 5 children like that. If you have life insurance, I get it a little, but like...
But also, this is the Great Depression time.
Yeah, which is even worse because what you're leaving your wife and daughters to.
Yeah,
in a time where wife and daughters do not have a lot of job earning opportunities.
No. So, yeah. And when Elizabeth was in her teens, she began suffering from chronic respiratory illnesses like severe asthma and bronchitis. She was hospitalized at least once, but ultimately became so bad that when she was around 15, she had to have lung surgery. Right? And this is that would be in the 30s by that point, but like...
I would not really want that surgery back then. I don't want that surgery now.
Exactly. I don't want it now. Back then. Whew. Okay.
How do they... Jesus Christ. Do they have anesthesia back then, or is it just down a bottle of rum?
They had anesthesia back then.
Good.
Yeah, but again, that tells you how severe it was. Like,
yeah,
they didn't take surgeries lightly back then.
No, you died most of the time. It felt like it.
Because you get an infection and they can't treat the infection. And yeah. So after the lung surgery, her doctors advised her to spend winters in milder climates. that should help alleviate her symptoms. So she spent several winters in Florida. It's a good place to go to be warm in the winter.
That is, yeah. I do like that old-timey remedy, and I do wish it could be more of a accessible thing nowadays. Like, yeah, just go somewhere nice and chill. Go to the
Right.
ocean, relax. We don't do that anymore.
I wish. No.
No, don't, take a Percocet or Vicodin.
You'll be fine.
You'll be fine. You won't go to the bathroom for a while, but you'll be fine.
It'll be okay. All right. So, we're jumping to 1942 now.
Okay.
In 1942, Phoebe Short, the mom, receives a letter supposedly from Cleo, her supposedly deceased husband.
The plot thickens.
Mm-hmm. Turns out he wasn't dead after all.
Oh, he's just a jerk.
Yeah, so the letter explained that he was alive and started a new life for himself in California.
Why would he send her that letter? Like that.
After all this time, why?
Yeah, that's what I'm
What
wondering.
is the point?
That's like all of a sudden you're married, you're happy, you got your home, and then all of a sudden there's a doorbell ring, and you go to the door, and it's your high school ex who, you had parted ways with, and you grieved and got over because they ghosted you, and they're just like, hey, I'm a millionaire now. My spouse is incredibly attractive, and we have great sex all the time. Bye. And just like leaving. Like,
I loved every second of that, by the way.
like that, it's the same vibe.
It's just like, so much hatred for this man.
Yeah.
Like, what is wrong with you? Your family thought that you were dead for how many years? This is 42, and he did that in 29. So 12 years.
13 at least, yeah.
13, yeah. Math wasn't mathin'.
Oh, I threw out 13 without really thinking about it. Thank God that was
13.
right. Sometimes my mouth just moves and I'm along for the ride with everyone else.
All right. So he started his new life in California. When Elizabeth turned 18, she decided to move to California to pursue her acting career, or she wanted to be an actress. So she moved to California and moved in with her father, but it only lasted a few weeks. Elizabeth moved out shortly after arriving because of their constant fighting. I mean, he did abandon her and doesn't really know anything about her, and
yeah.
And I mean, you did fake your own death. So, like,
it's the faking your own death. Like, abandoning, not great. Faking your own death, like, that's a whole other level of, no.
Yeah, so Elizabeth and her sisters and mom are kind of messed up at this point, and understandably so.
Yeah.
So she left his house. She wanted to become an actress, but her career never really took off. She worked a whole bunch of different jobs to support herself while pursuing acting. But I mean, you're in LA. It's very expensive. You're just a waitress. You're not really making ends meet. You're barely getting by.
Tale as old as time. Not much has changed.
Yeah. She got a job at Camp Cook, which is now the Vandenberg Air Force Base. While working there, Elizabeth met an officer and moved in with him. Unfortunately, this didn't last long, as she claimed that he abused her. So she is just getting hit after hit.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Also good to know the other story doesn't change of you move in real quick with military folks. That is a second date is at the chapel.
Yep. Yeah.
No hate.
No.
I've seen it.
I have too. That's why I'm laughing.
I know, it's a thing.
So many of, like, some of the people I went to high school with that joined the military right out of high school, they were married within, like, months after leaving high school.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, did you just meet a random person and was like, hey, let's get married.
Kinda. I mean, you also get better pay and benefits in the military
You
if
do,
you're
yeah,
married. So,
yeah.
like, I get it.
I do get it, but also like
Yeah,
you might want to know the other person just a little bit.
just a little, because once you're married, they can be legally entitled to half your assets in the event of a
Mhm.
split. So,
Yeah, make smart decisions.
make smart decisions. I'm not a lawyer. Do your own stuff, but like, be smart,
Yes.
please.
So Elizabeth ends up moving around California quite a bit, and it's kind of hard to keep track of where she's jumping around because it's just constant moving. She was known to frequent nightclubs and bars in LA and was often seen with different men who some of gave her financial support. And that is how they
I'm
worded that.
remembering this.
Oh, it's coming back.
It's coming back. Ooh. Yeah, you're not kidding about this being gruesome if I'm remembering right. Stay tuned.
It's really not pretty. So here's another warning. If you don't want to listen to something gruesome, it'll still be a couple minutes, but like you might want to skip this episode.
And if you're here for the gruesome, skip ahead a couple minutes and also get psychiatric help. Please.
It is an interesting case. So in 1943, Elizabeth was arrested in Santa Barbara for underage drinking. So
43. So she's how old at that point?
43. She was born in 1890. Yeah, she would be 19.
Again, number. Woo! Glad I was right.
Yes. So she was 19. She gets arrested for underage drinking. Elizabeth then decides to move to Florida shortly after her arrest. And this is where she meets Air Force officer Major Matthew Michael Gordon Jr. It's a long name.
Major Matthew Michael Gordon. Say that 5 times fast.
I can't. So he ends up proposing to her and she accepts. Well, unfortunately, her bad luck continues. And, in the 40s, what war was going on? World War II. And so, unfortunately, in August of 1945, so only a couple days before the end of World War II, her fiance was killed in a plane crash. I know.
That's so sad.
It was really sad. So she is once again on her own and decides to move back to Southern California in 1946 to be closer with one of her friends who was transferred from Florida to California. They were in the military also. In April of 1946, a film was released called The Blue Dahlia. At this time, Elizabeth was frequently going to a shop where they give her the nickname of the Black Dahlia. They did this because she dyed her hair black and wore mostly black clothing.
Little eccentric for the 40s.
Mm-hmm. I mean, she was kind of in grieving, though. Her fiance just died.
Yeah, that is valid. Oh, well, that's kind of a jerk move on the store's front. I mean, if you're a regular somewhere, you get a nickname and you just hope it's good.
I think it was meant to be some sort of compliment because of like the actress that was in the Blue Dahlia.
Okay.
But they just called her the Black Dahlia because she was the black version of the Blue Dahlia. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it works. Wait, African American black or?
No.
Oh, okay, just the hair and everything else.
Just the hair, yeah.
I was like, wait, did I massively miss something in my recollection Rolodex?
No.
Oh,
No.
sure, but I can say recollection Rolodex, no problem.
It's a weird day.
It's a weird day.
So while she was in Southern California, Elizabeth moved quite frequently between hotels, apartments, boarding houses, private homes. Oftentimes, she was able to stay for free, or if she had to pay, she made sure that it was fairly cheap. She was always tight on money. For a month, she stayed in a 2-bedroom apartment with 8 other women. Despite the rent being cut that many times, she still couldn't afford it. and would end up sneaking out and avoiding the manager when the rent was due.
2-bedroom, 8 women. Oh, God.
I know. I can't even imagine that. That's insane.
I've done 4 women, 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, and there was days we were on top of each other trying to get stuff done.
I remember in college we had suites, so it was 2 bedrooms, 4 girls, and 1 bathroom. I'm like, that was cramped. But imagine a little more than doubling that. No, thank you.
That was the times. So she doesn't have peace anywhere, really.
No,
Okay.
not really. Something also unique about Elizabeth was that she preferred the company of strangers over closer friends. Which is... I'm an introverted person, so like I can't relate.
I can and I can't. It depends. Because it's nice that you can just not have to worry too much with strangers. But like true close friends, you don't have to worry. So that should be better. Okay, some Freud person in our comments, tell us what that means.
Yeah, I would love to know
Yeah.
what that means.
Well, given the end of this story, I actually can think of what it might mean, but validate me here, please.
Right, well, so Elizabeth ended up finding a family who took pity on her. After a while, though, they got tired of her habits and her lifestyle and kicked her out. Elizabeth ended up leaving on January 8th of 1947 with a married salesman named Robert Manley. He ended up giving her a ride from San Diego to LA. There are mixed things with sources here. Some say that they were dating. Some say that he was just being nice and dropped her off. Some say they were just friends. No idea. But they ended up staying in a motel for the night, and then the next morning, I know. He swears nothing happened. Yeah. Yeah, make your own conclusions. I'm not going to plop that in your head because I don't know.
No, we know. We know.
Yeah. So they stayed in the motel for the night, and the next morning, Robert brought her to the Biltmore Hotel, where Elizabeth was supposedly planning on meeting her sister, who was coming to visit from Boston that afternoon. Robert accompanied her to the hotel lobby at the Biltmore, and he had ended up leaving her at 6:30 p.m. on January 9th, 1947. He was returning to go back to his family in San Diego. Robert was the last known person to see her alive. Yeah. So, aside from, hotel employees, but that was it. He was like the last actual person to have an interaction with her that they know of. Elizabeth was last seen in the Biltmore Hotel making frantic phone calls. A car came and picked her up. Some accounts say that they stopped at Crown Grill, which was a few blocks down, or the Cecil Hotel bar. Neither have been verified, though, because unlike the Biltmore, there weren't any staff that could actually verify that she had been there. One thing is for certain, though. After she got in the car, no one saw her alive again. 6 days later, on January 15th, 1947, a housewife named Betty Bersinger was walking down Norton Avenue in LA. She came across an abandoned parking lot, and she saw what she assumed to be a mannequin because it was so white. When she got closer, she realized that she was looking at a naked, mutilated body and ran to the authorities. All right, here's your last chance to stop before we get into it. So her body was split in half at the waist. Pieces of her flesh had been cut away. Her face was slashed from the corners of each mouth to her ears to create what is called a Glasgow smile.
Glasgow smile, yep.
It's really creepy.
Very creepy. I believe that one was coined by is it the IRA? I think it's the IRA.
I don't know.
Irish.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't look into that too much. I just saw that. I was like, yep, I know what that is. Ugh. The lower half of the body was positioned a foot away from the upper part, and her intestines were tucked underneath her buttocks. Her corpse was posed with her hands over her head, elbows bent at right angles, and her legs spread apart. Which there is something, and I didn't have time to look into it, but there is something in psychology about murderers and serial killers that position bodies.
Yep, because it can deal with either remorse or, in this case, from my limited knowledge, that is another way of victimizing the victim and also the people who discover the victim by putting it in such an obscene positioning that further dehumanizes the victim. And again, it's a shock value for those who find it. Like, that's an intentional, messed up thing.
Yeah. I mean, this one definitely had the shock value. So there was also no blood anywhere. This suggests that her body was thoroughly cleaned with gasoline before it was positioned in this final spot.
Was she exsanguinated as well? That means drained of blood, right?
I don't know. I couldn't find anything about it. But, I mean, there's no blood. She is so pale, like ghostly pale, I'm assuming probably. But
Well, I mean, blood loss from cut in half. Should I wait to ask about? Yeah, I'll wait.
I know where you're going. Just hang on.
Thanks.
Yeah. I'm not even gonna let you finish that sentence. So Elizabeth was finally identified by her fingerprints because she had been arrested in Santa Barbara a couple years back. An autopsy was performed on January 16th. Her autopsy states that she was 5'5", weighed 115 pounds, had light blue eyes, brown hair, and badly decayed teeth, which is a little odd.
I mean, maybe as a result of her lifestyle?
That's the only thing I can think of. But I don't know what causes badly decayed teeth at age 22. Because she's only 22.
Unless she had been taking a medication for a long time. Because there used to be medications, and honestly, actually, someone I know and someone that you've met, born in the 60s, they had a medication when they were a baby that permanently stained their teeth. And so they've got veneers. So there's actually some old meds that seriously messed up your teeth, especially if you had them younger. It could cause decaying of the bone.
Yeah.
Which is messed up.
Well, and I guess if she's also hopping from place to place, you know, teeth hygiene probably isn't her number one priority.
I'd hope. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're just guessing on this one, but...
Yeah, total guess. I have no idea. She also had ligature marks on her ankles, wrists, neck, and an irregular laceration with superficial tissue lost on her right breast. There is also superficial lacerations to the right forearm, upper left arm, and the lower left side of her chest. Her body was cut completely in half by a technique taught in the 1930s that was called a hemicorporectomy.
In what world did we need that taught for what?
I have no idea. That just blew my mind. And like the fact that it has a name and it's a surgical procedure, why would you ever? I don't know. Google real quick.
Yeah, I was going to say, we need a Google break. I cannot just go past that. Hemirectomy?
Hemicorporectomy. Corporectomy. Why?
Translumbar amputation.
Yeah.
Radical surgery. No shit. amputating the lower body. Oh my
Pelvic
God.
cancer, supposedly.
This procedure involves transecting the lumbar spine, spinal cord, aorta, and inferior vena cava, removing the legs, genitalia, urinary system, pelvic bones, anus, and rectum.
Yeah, it's a messed up procedure. I did have those notes later on, but yeah, it's I don't know. But also there was a lot of questionable things going on at that time.
In the
Like,
30s, yeah.
yeah, medicine related, surgery related, like,
It was kind of the Wild West.
yeah.
Only about 60 cases have been published, with 11 operations performed for terminal osteomyelitis.
Osteomyelitis.
Successfully performed a hemicorporectomy in a patient with chronic sepsis from terminal pelvic osteomyelitis after exhausting all other treatment options. Well, I'd hope
I
you
hope
exhausted
so.
the others.
Ugh. All right. Well, that was fun.
25 years. What the? Okay, we'll go back to the story, but what?
Connie's getting trapped in a little rabbit hole over there.
It's more than a rabbit hole.
I know.
My God.
Yeah. So her lower half of the body was removed by transecting the lumbar spine between the second and third lumbar vertebrae and severed the intestines at the duodenum, which the duodenum is the very first part of the small intestines.
Here.
It's like right after your stomach.
Okay. I have a
You
lot of
good?
questions.
Are you
I have
okay?
a lot of questions.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm still going back to the fact that we have a name for this procedure.
We shouldn't have a name for this procedure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the report states that there is, quote, very little, end quote, ecmosis.
I don't know that word.
It's bruising. Sorry. My brain was just like,
I'm
that's
medic.
not how I pronounce that. So the report states that there is very little ecmosis or bruising along the incision line, which suggests that this occurred after she died.
Okay, that was my question earlier. I was like, oh God, please be postmortem.
Yep, postmortem. So luckily she did not have to endure that trauma.
But my question, okay, obviously a lot of questions here. What kind of a sick fucking psychopath decided to do that after she was dead?
Very sick.
Like that, I swear that has to go into psychopathy. That curiousness of the dead body part.
Yeah.
Again, a Freud type person, or I mean, actually, psych folk don't really like Freud. Apparently, psych person in the comments, tell more. But like,
yeah, we would love to hear more about the psychology behind this. But
dude's messed up. That's all I got. And I'm saying
insane.
Dude because I feel like this is a dude.
Well, a lot of people assumed it was a dude, so you're not wrong in that assumption, I guess. There was another gaping laceration that was 4 1/4 inch long that ran from the umbilicus to the suprapubic region. That is the best that is going to get, and I apologize. But
so this
from here to here.
So belly button to like pelvic bone.
Yeah.
Pubic bone, whatever.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. Ooh.
Yeah. The lacerations on each side of the face were measured at 3 inches on the right side and 2.5 on the left. Her skull was intact, but there was bruising on the front right side of her scalp with small amounts of bleeding in the subarachnoid spaces on the right side, which this is consistent of blows to the chest.
Sorry, he burped and startled himself.
It was blows to the head, not to the chest. I don't know why I said chest.
No, you're good. Oh, so wait, if there was bruising, that means that was perimortem? Mortem? Before she died.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was consistent that she had multiple like blows to her head, but her skull was not depressed, so no skull fractures or anything.
Do we have a cause of death?
We do. Um, and that's my next point.
Segue.
You got it. The cause of death was determined to be hemorrhaging from the lacerations to her face and the shock from the blows to the head and face.
Understandable.
Yeah. It's yeah, because I saw pictures too, and it's not like it's superficial bleeding. It's like a deep. It looks really not
Am I
great.
going to regret looking at pictures?
I mean, they don't look that bad. They're in black and white. It's older. We will see if she lives to regret this decision.
No, actually, you want to know what? I saw that you brought salami today, so no.
Okay.
No, I'm not looking
Yep.
at the pictures after we eat.
Good call. All right. So if this story wasn't already messed up, this part just made me so pissed off.
Oh,
There is no way this should have ever should have happened, and B, it just like boils my blood how mad. Like,
I can take a guess what this next part is, and I hope to God I'm wrong.
so once she was identified, all the reporters came flooding in, right? So the Los Angeles Examiner, which was a newspaper, they contacted Phoebe, her mother, and told her that her daughter won a beauty contest and they wanted to know more about her. And Phoebe, of course, was so excited and told them a whole lot, like an excited mother would be, about her daughter winning a beauty contest and making it in a newspaper. So their goal was to get as much personal information about Elizabeth as they could. Once they got all the information that they could out of Phoebe, they told her that Elizabeth was murdered, and they offered to pay for Phoebe to come to LA to help with the investigation, but really they just wanted her for more reports.
You skeevy sons of bitches.
That part just makes me so mad. Why on earth would that be okay?
Bleeds, lead, and sex sells.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to move on.
Yeah, I do real quick though. One of the potential episode ideas is the rise of yellow journalism and that type of journalism. That's one that I want to do because that doesn't surprise me the least when you know the history.
That can be a you one.
Yeah, it's bad.
Okay. People are cruel. You don't need to be that cruel.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, does it surprise us? Because
no, it's not surprising. But
no, think of Princess Diana. Her whole situation, where the paparazzi were taking pictures of her as she was laying there dying. No, wait, did she die on impact? I don't remember. I think Dodie.
I don't know. I know she died in a car crash. I just don't know much beyond that.
I believe that she did not die on impact. I think Dodie, her boyfriend, did, and the driver did.
Okay.
But then I believe she died at the hospital later of injuries sustained from it. But yeah, no, instead of getting medical help, they continued to take photos because,
Press.
yeah, you know what? If you're not fazed by us judging you on that, just know that someone upstairs will judge you for it.
Yes. So this, of course, became a huge investigation, as it should. Whoever did it is psychotic. The original name of the crime was the werewolf murder because of how she was mutilated. But as the crime continued to circulate the newspapers, they ended up taking on her previous nickname, and the story of the Black Dahlia made the headlines for weeks. So that's where you got the name, the Black Dahlia. On January 24th, so 8 days after she was found, a suspicious envelope addressed to the LA Examiner and other LA papers was found. Inside the envelope, um, was a letter that used cutout words from newspaper clippings that said, "Here is Dahlia's belongings." The envelope was Elizabeth's birth certificate, business cards, photographs, names written on pieces of paper, and an address book. Like her body, though, the contents of the envelope was also cleaned with gasoline. So, no fingerprints. Authorities assumed that this had to have come from her killer. The same day, there was a packet that was sent to the paper, the Examiner, that contained a handbag and a black suede shoe that was reported to have been seen on top of a garbage bag, on top of a garbage can in an alley that was about 2 miles from the crime scene. Again, these were wiped with gasoline as well. So whoever is doing this knows how to cover their tracks.
Theory. The Glasgow smile plus the extreme methodicism almost of all of this.
Mm-hmm.
This feels like a professional hit, like a psychopath employed by some of the families, meaning crime families. I don't know.
It's too perfect.
It's perfect and it's overkill. It feels like it's sending a message where like, because, and again, total theory here.
Yeah.
But my brain's going, she preferred the company of strangers to close friends. And, you know, being friendly, being a young, pretty woman, it very easy that she could have, you know, ended up hooking up or becoming friends with or accidentally overhearing in the midst of being around
Absolutely.
a crime family member. And maybe she got dumb and she thought she could threaten or who knows what. And
or
then,
even as simple as wrong place, wrong time.
Wrong place, wrong time. A host of different things I can think of here. But it's the making all the frantic phone calls at the hotel.
Yeah.
Where that's where I'm like, I feel like she knew something was coming.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were involved in the crime stuff, you know, I feel like that could be I don't know, theory, just a theory.
Yeah, there are a lot of theories surrounding, and I only picked a couple, but there are like pages and pages and pages on
I'm sure.
theories. We could have a whole like 2-hour long episode just going over the different theories. And even then, that probably would not be enough time. So on January 26th, the Examiner received another letter that was handwritten this time. I know. It read, quote, "Here it is. Turning in Wednesday, January 29th, 10 a.m. Had my fun at police. Black Dahlia adventure." End quote. The letter names a location that the killer would turn himself in. The police waited at that location on the 29th, but shocking, he did not appear. At 1 p.m., though, the Examiner received another cut and pasted letter reading, quote, "Have changed my mind. You would not have given me a square deal. Dahlia killing was justified." End quote. Due to how precise the cuts on her body were, the police assumed that her killer was in the medical field. So they got a warrant to the USC Medical School, which was very close to where Elizabeth was found. There were several interviews and background checks, but ultimately nothing came of it. On March 14th, there was a suicide note that was found tucked in a shoe in a pile of men's clothing by the ocean in Venice. It read, quote, "To whom it may concern, I have waited for the police to capture me for the Black Dahlia killing, but have not. I am too much of a coward to turn myself in, so this is the best way out for me. I couldn't help myself for that, or this. Sorry, Mary. End quote. The pile of the clothes gave no clue about the identity of the owners, though, which is very unfortunate. What are you thinking over there?
A lot.
I can tell every time I glance out of the corner of my eye, I'm like, you're just wheels are spinning.
Wheels are going in overdrive here. I do remember hearing that part about the note in the shoe. My thing is that, and again, I don't have enough psychology background. I have no psychology background. But I don't have the background to try to really break it down. But it seems like there's a disconnect between the severity of the crime, the garishness of how the body was displayed, and now the taunting with the police. I mean, taunting to a degree, I get it. But then the I'm going to turn myself in. No, I changed my mind. The suicide note. It feels like it's not one person.
Well, they don't know if the suicide note was the killer or not.
That's the thing. It just doesn't feel like, if we're tracking the whole crime family syndicate type deal and this being a hit of some type, I can understand sending a letter to the police and like whipping up this frenzy. And then you specifically tell them like, oh, on the 29th at 1 p.m. I will be here. And then if I was that hit person, I would be like, okay, I'm going to tell them to be here so that all the cops are concentrated on this big, this flashy thing. And I'm going to make my escape over here.
Absolutely.
But then the letter again.
Yeah. There are so many questions with this case.
So many questions.
And yeah. So we don't know if the suicide note was correct or not, or like actually legit or not, I should say. But remember I mentioned something about an address book being turned in or sent in?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the address book had the name of Mark Hansen embroidered on it. Police found him and labeled him as a suspect. So Mark Hansen was a wealthy nightclub owner and a theater owner, and he was friends with the family that Elizabeth stayed with last. Hansen allegedly was able to also identify the purse and shoes to be Elizabeth.
That just feels too obvious. His embroidered address book is sent in with hers. That feels misdirected.
There's a little more to it than that, though.
Oh, okay. What we got?
So one of Elizabeth's friends and roommates, Anne Toth, told investigators that Elizabeth had recently rejected Mark and suggested that it could be a potential motive to kill her.
Okay, that could track because you and I both know that in the history of humanity, men and women, but though mainly men, have gone psy-friggin-cotic when they have faced a romantic rejection.
Yep. Yeah. So I'm not saying he did it, but
if he did, it's just weird that he'd include the address book.
There is also another theory, and I didn't write it down, that includes Mark, but it came out in a book that came out in 2008, I believe, and basically that author was saying that, you know, one of his employees and him were like laundering money or something, and then she found out, and so there is more potentially to that, but no idea if it actually is right or not.
I mean, it could have. Well, again, if she found out something she wasn't supposed to, I mean, maybe Mark could have been the one who, if he's not head honcho, he told the head honcho and the head honcho took care of it. And maybe the head honcho was like, all right, well, Marky boy over here is an idiot and I'm not going to trust him. So let's frame him up for this.
One more thing on Mark that I forgot about until I looked one more point down on my notes. A big reason why Mark was looked at so heavily And why a lot of people believe that he's the killer is because he attended a surgical school in Sweden and had thrown big elaborate parties where mostly LAPD officers attended. So did he do that, and he was on the inside? He was all buddy-buddy with all these cops, and that's why he never was.
Well, shit, what was Ed Gein or whoever it was that was the big killer, and he was best friends with the cops, and like literally the cops didn't believe him when he said, "Oh yeah, I'm the ones who killed them." Maybe we'll do an episode on that one. But like,
yeah, I don't know anything about that one.
Oh, girl, it's messed up. That is mommy issues to the max. Anyway, for those who know, you know. But I don't.
That can be our mommy issues and
mommy issues and stabby issues. Well, it's more like mommy issues and strangle issues.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, interesting. Sweden. Sorry. Boing, get a boing, boing, boing. Chaos Chronicles. Yeah. But the fact that he was in Sweden, which would mean the Glasgow Smile is a little more regional in that part of the world than it is the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Could have picked that up there. Okay. So what happened to dear old Mark?
I don't know.
Did he just disappear? We don't know.
I don't know. What happened to Mark?
Google break.
Basically nothing happened to Mark, and he eventually passed away in 1964. It says that he is still a point of interest for those studying the Black Dahlia case, but was never formally charged or proven to be involved in the crime. Yeah. So Mark was cleared from the suspect list. So another potential killer that people always come up with is, like they did in our Zodiac Killer episode, which is daddy issues and stabby issues. If you guys like this one, you'll probably like that one. But people think that it could be a cop on the inside. Again, just covering their tracks. Like there's no prints, there's no witnesses.
And I don't suppose it was common knowledge, per se, that gasoline would get rid of fireprints. Fireprints? What? Fingerprints. I mean, it'll get rid of it'll create fireprints, but
it definitely will. I would assume probably not, because they didn't have internet back then, and it's not.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Huh.
So
well, unless you circle back to Crime Family something.
They would know.
They would know.
Yeah. Police interviewed over 150 men in the following weeks who they believed to be potential suspects. Robert Manley, the guy who drove her, was also investigated since he was one of the last people to see her alive. But he ended up passing several polygraph examinations, so he was ultimately cleared of suspicion. Several. I know.
I mean,
I
don't know the science enough for polygraph tests, but I feel like if you are psychotic enough to do that,
isn't that why they've thrown it out now? Like,
I was gonna say, I don't feel like that's admissible as like a concrete evidence.
It's not, I think that was recently changed. It's not conclusive anymore.
Yeah. Which I get, because if you can disassociate yourself from the actions enough, you could pass that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Which is messed up.
Yeah.
That's the theme of this episode, messed up.
Really messed up. Yeah. But
we warned you.
We did. I warned you several times.
Yeah. If you're still here, thank you for enjoying. Like and subscribe. We appreciate it.
Glad you like the gruesome, morbid cases. Like
the internet does, which is why we're doing more of them.
Yeah.
Well.
And if you're going to need something lighthearted after this, go check out a Twilight episode. Yeah, so there was a total of 750 investigators that worked this case during the initial stages. 750.
You didn't. I'm getting a little too many cooks in the kitchen vibe from that.
I know. I think a lot came from they police were hungry for more evidence. They were scouring everywhere looking for evidence. So they were looking through storm drains in LA. They were looking at all these abandoned structures and all the sites along like the LA River and stuff. So
You are going to need massive amounts of manpower.
I'm assuming that's where most of that big number came from, but like
Yeah.
it's an insane amount.
Also, I get it though, because serial killers are not really a thing at that point. Like,
No.
yes, there's been a couple, but it's not as well known.
No, Zodiac Killer was like the first, not obviously not the first serial killer, but like the first to be given the name serial killer.
Yeah, which was still not for another like 20, 30 years after this.
I believe so, yeah.
And technically, we can't say this is serial. I misspoke there, but like a murder.
It could be, though.
Could be. Yeah, I don't feel like this is a first kill for this person. Seems
we'll
a little
get to that in a bit.
Oh, dang it. But like, even so, I can understand why, as the community, you'd be like, oh my God, there is a monster in our midst here. We gotta have the responsibility to take care of it now, because that was the community back then of, oops,
Yep.
something's different, gotta get rid of it, which wasn't always good.
No.
But like, oh, okay, I'll set that one on the shelf. But you mentioned may not be the first murder.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll get to that.
Goody.
So we're just going to keep going down here. So a city councilman posted a $10,000 reward for any information leading the police to Elizabeth's killer in today's money, because I figured that out for you.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, dang, even still in today's money, that's good money.
About $136,000.
Oh, today it's 136.
Yeah.
Back then it was 10,000.
Yeah. That's some good money there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, after posting this, many people came forward with confessions.
Yep. See, and there becomes the issue. You need to have that fine print of only paid if substantial contribution to capture.
Yeah, that's why they said leading the police to Elizabeth's killer.
Yeah, but of course, people don't read fine print.
No.
People don't read big print.
No,
people sit on wet paint signs all the time. So,
yeah.
General public.
Yeah. Most police dismissed these confessions as false, and several people were charged with obstruction of justice.
Good, as it should be.
Yeah. Don't do what? Yeah. Anyway, that can be a whole tangent, but it's not. During the initial investigation, police got over 60 confessions, mainly from men. Since then, there have been over 500 people who have confessed to the murder, but some weren't even born at the time of the murder.
Really? Don't waste the resources.
Exactly.
Don't waste.
So, obviously, this is a cold case and remains open today. It's never been closed. Some crime authors found a link between the Black Dahlia murder and the Cleveland Torso murders, which occurred between 1934 and 1938.
Google.
So I didn't write a lot about these because these could potentially be other episodes if you guys want to hear them. But basically, here, there was a serial killer that murdered.
It comes up with pictures right away on Google. Well, that's...
Exit out, Connie, abort.
I did. But too late. My brain went right to it.
Well, that's a warning for you guys.
Oh, if you Google. Just on the head, the decaying head. That...
Are you good?
Yep. We're going to block that one out. Oh, son of a biscuit. Why am I a visual learner? God damn it.
So basically with this one, a serial killer murdered and dismembered at least 12 victims. There was a primary suspect, but they died and this case went cold too. So next, the murder of Jean French in LA on February 10th of 1947. This is also another possible link to Elizabeth's murder, and this was more famously noted as the red lipstick murder. That case also went cold. Yep.
Comforting.
Yep. When investigators began, Leslie Short, her sister, was considered to be the prime suspect, but was ultimately never brought to trial, and I couldn't figure out why she was never brought to trial.
And Leslie was the one that she was meeting, correct?
I don't know. It just said she was meeting her sister.
Her sister, because there was 4 of them.
Yeah. So maybe because she said her sister was coming to town, and then the next thing they know, she gets in a car with someone.
I mean, like, yeah, it is a little weird. And I did have some questions about, like, who's the first person to, well, okay, not Dahlia, Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm.
She was a little flitty and she would go here to there. So maybe she showed, or she didn't show, and her sister was kind of like, that's Liz. I'll give it a couple of days and then I'll be worried. And then the body was found in the meantime.
Yeah, I have no idea.
A lot of questions on this one.
So many questions. So even though this case went cold, it's still unsolved, like I've said, but it has inspired many books, TV shows, movies, both of fiction and nonfiction.
Death metal bands. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I got on the Black Dahlia. Hopefully you guys aren't too traumatized. That was a weird one.
That was a weird one. Oddly enough, I was fine until I mistakenly Googled the Cleveland torso. Pictures. It's the pictures.
Yeah.
I don't need to.
I'd say don't Google any of these like cases unless you're okay with seeing pictures.
Yeah.
To be completely honest.
Yeah, be ready to be slapped in the face with a couple of them. It's first page on Google. It's just there.
Yeah. I am lucky in the fact that doesn't really faze me.
I can and I can't deal with it. It depends. It's weird because once it gets into my subconscious, it does not go away.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's a me issue. Yet somehow when I've seen the weird stuff in person, that doesn't get to me as much. I think I put a psych block on it, but like seeing those videos where the basketball player lands wrong and the shin comes out of the shin. Yeah.
I don't enjoy bones breaking.
Yeah, outside of the skin.
I don't enjoy the sound of bones breaking.
I don't think anyone should. And if that's your nighttime white noise, Jesus Christ.
Don't tell me.
Don't tell me and then lock yourself up because, Jesus, even Satan would be scared of you.
Right. Well, another thing is Elizabeth is basically the most famous female after her death.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No one really knew of her while she was alive, but became the most famous woman.
Well, if that ain't some universal irony there.
Right.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Well, thank God she was arrested so they had her fingerprints on file.
I know, and if not, I don't know how long it probably would have taken them so long to figure out who she was.
Oh, yeah. All of this is just... Ugh.
My money's on Mark. I'm going to call it. I don't care. I'm saying Mark. There's too many coincidences there that...
No. My money is on... It's a dude.
Yeah.
Minimum one, possibly a group. Although, deposing, one. Unless you had one dominant, one submissive, so 2 pair. But no, hitman. I'm going back to a hitman. I think there's multiple people involved in it, but the one who actually carried out the physical act of the murder, I feel like that was one person.
Gotcha. Let us know what you guys think, or if you have a different theory. I know there are so many out there, so definitely let us know what your theory is, what you think happened to Elizabeth.
Yes, we'd be very interested to hear your theories. If you have any other cold cases or just general cases, weird things in history that you'd like us to do an episode on, let us know. We are more than happy to have topics suggested because right now our Google search history looks real messed up.
It does. It looks real weird.
I'm sure we're on a list somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. So let us know. We are more than happy to research and make an episode on it. So
yeah, feels like a odd time to plug our socials again, but yeah, just go for it.
We are on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, and TikTok, all at Chaos Chronicles Podcast, and that's Chronicles with an S.
Like and subscribe, please.
Yeah.
Oh,
all right.
Well, this is the first episode. Also, I don't think we've had stabby of some type. I mean, we alluded to the episode, but it wasn't an organic stabby.
Yeah. It's a weird one. I think we were too... well, it usually comes from you. I think you were a little too thrown off by other things going on.
Yeah.
Because usually it comes from anger. There wasn't much anger. It was more so confusion. Appalled. Many questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think you were too distracted by all the questions in your head
There was a lot of questions on this one.
Yeah. But
well,
maybe next time.
There we go.
Had to get one in.
We got one in.
All right. Well, we will see you guys next time.
Adios.
Bye.